This exploration takes us back to 2015 as I explore the Paul A. Dever School in Taunton, Mass., right before its demolition. The Dever School is massive, and over the course of 3 days, I explored the dorms, medical building, school, gym, and other outlying buildings to try and document what was left before it was all gone. The exploration starts off here in one of the male dorms. The Dever School opened in 1952 as Miles Standish State School. It was opened as a residential school for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. At its peak, there were over 1,400 patients. It was originally opened to house juveniles. However, what ended up happening is that most of the patients would end up growing up there and spending their entire lives in the institution. The massive campus contained many L-shaped dormitories. One half of the campus was the male side, and the other half was the female side. In the middle was a cafeteria. There were underground tunnels that connected all of the buildings. I'm currently inside one of the male dormitories. When I was there, the female side was being demolished. The land that the Dever School sat on was originally a World War II training camp called Camp Miles Standish. The camp was built in 1942. It was built on land that was taken by eminent domain from local farmers. The camp was named after military commander Miles Standish, who was the first commander of the Plymouth colony. The camp was massive, taking up over 1,485 acres, and it could house 23,100 enlisted personnel and 1,298 officers. Most were only there a short time before transitioning to or back from Europe. Soldiers from the US, Canada, Britain, and Australia were all processed through the camp. Captured German and Italian POWs were detained at the camp. The camp would close in 1946 after the end of the war. The site was considered as a potential location for the United Nations. Obviously, this didn't go through as it's located in New York. The site ended up being sold to the Department of Mental Health for $1 in order so that it could build a state school for, quote, retarded children. In 1952, Dr. Jack Ewalt was the first superintendent. The first name of the institution was Miles Standish State School for the Mentally Retarded. The patients were originally housed in an area that was the hospital for the Army camp. It wasn't until 1959 that the L-shaped dormitories would open for the patients. These were built with funding secured by Governor Paul A. Dever, and the state school was renamed in his honor. Paul A. Dever was also an advocate for improving the care of the mentally handicapped. I'm currently in the Charles E. Colton Medical Building. This provided the medical services for the campus. Inside of this building was a surgery suite and the morgue, as well as other various offices and an x-ray machine, different medical things. Here's the surgery suite. The building was very vandalized and decayed, but I was lucky to have been in there only about a week before it would be demolished and gone forever. Trying to research the history of the Dever School is difficult. When looking online, you can find very little information. Much of the information that I got for researching this came from an old public access TV show, which was hosted by the former mayor of Taunton, Charles Crowley. It's called Old Time Taunton, and this episode was the history of Camp Miles Standish and the Dever School. In this, he took a few calls, and I'll play some of those calls, which tells what it was like working at the Dever School.
You're next on Old Time Taunton. Hello. Hi, you're live. Go ahead.
How you doing?
Hi.
How's it going, Charlie?
Good. You're on the air. What can you tell us about Camp Miles Standish?
I started working there part-time when I was in college in 1981.
Okay.
And I worked there till 1986. Mm-hmm. And the only reason I quit, because I needed a full-time job. Mm-hmm. I couldn't find a teaching job when I got out of college. Mm-hmm. I graduated Bridgewater State College in 1986. And that was a very good job.
What did you do there?
I was a kitchen worker.
Oh, okay.
I started out training in the main cafeteria. Mm-hmm. And then they send you out to what they call satellite kitchens.
Sure.
And I landed a good job in the cottages.
Oh, yeah.
Cottages were the new buildings, cottage A, B, C, and D.
Correct.
Everything was brand new. They were clean. And the only thing that bothered me when I started that job was seeing these clients in their condition.
Right.
It was very tough. I mean, these kids have mental and physical health problems. It really bothered me.
Well, when they as it evolved into the Paul Dever School, it was built for youngsters. But as we know from, especially if you were there, I was working there at the same time. The young clientele that were there initially stayed there and became senior citizens in many cases while they stayed at the Dever School. But around 1981, 80-81 is when they renovated the old nurseries and the cottages, if you will. And the Fenton building, they gutted that and renovated that. So by the time you got there, those buildings were probably brand new as far as the interior of them.
Yes.
So that's, but it's great though. Some of the stories you could tell about both Camp Miles Standish and the Paul Dever School is quite unique.
There's a lot of nice people there, and I'll tell you, for a college kid, at the time I was making, minimum wage now was $8. Yep. Back in 1981, 1982, I was making $6.75 an hour. That wasn't too bad.
Sure.
I remember taking home $82, $83 a week, and I put gas in my car, and I lived at home at the time, and it wasn't that bad.
Sure.
That was a very good job.
Great. Well, thank you for calling. Thank you. That caller, having worked at the Paul Dever School, the site of Camp Miles Standish, some of the buildings were still there.
I'm currently walking around the Fenton building. This is probably the most modern looking building on the campus. It was built in the late 1960s, and it was originally to house the most profoundly disabled children. In the 1980s, it was gutted and renovated. It would remain open and in use until the state school's closure in 2002.
What? fucking saw something in that room, but I don't even fucking know. I'm gonna take a shower. Fucking,
That's what I was seeing earlier.
I was dead, bro. Oh shit, you got that on video. This isn't the room we smoked in, right?
No.
Looks like it.
The Dever School, like a lot of institutions at the time, had its struggles. When researching, I came across an account, quote, Paulie Dever was unspeakable. It was unmentionable. The second worst institution in the math system to Belchertown. I also came across a blog post with an account from Dever. It's titled, Another Story from Dever. It reads, quote, Folks who have some familiarity with my blog know that from time to time I share some stories from my friend, Larry Tomino. As a longtime advocate for the liberation of people with disabilities who have been institutionalized, Larry and his colleagues have chronicled stories from folks who have lived for many years at the Paul A. Dever State School, a large setting for folks with intellectual disabilities in Taunton, Mass. Dever, like most of these institutions, set up all over the United States to care for people with disabilities, was closed in 2002. In spite of their intentions, most of these institutions became brutal and unbearable settings where the residents were treated worse than most anyone might imagine. The monograph, We Bear Witness, was compiled by Larry and his colleagues so that we would not forget the horrors of institutionalization. Here is a piece by Jim Ross dedicated to his friend Peter, who lived at Dever at perhaps its lowest point. From horror to horror, Peter was brutalized at home as a child, chained in a room and forced to eat and sleep on the floor. When authorities discovered him, his salvation was to enter a system that included Dever in its most awful days. When asked about those days, Peter just shakes his head and repeats, like a mantra to keep away evil spirits, You have no idea. You just have no idea. You'd think Peter's life would have destroyed him, that he would have retreated inward or attacked everything and everyone around him. There are, I know, many scars on and in Peter, but he has become a gentle and accomplished man. He is a long-time and valued employee at a local company, making more money than the people who hired to provide him the modest supports. His co-workers are involved deeply in Peter's life. He owns his own condo, living by choice by himself. Peter's will has an inspirational provision. When he dies, a scholarship fund in his name will be established at the local high school. It will be used to help college-bound students with disabilities. Peter is one of my heroes. Let's now return to the old-time Taunton TV show to hear another account of working at Dever.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you about Paul Dever State
Sure.
School.
Okay.
I worked there for 37 years. And that picture of the maple leaf, that's the last big fire they had about a month ago, I believe it was.
Oh, really? Okay. Because the canteen burned down as well.
Right, yeah, that burned down earlier.
Yep.
And then the theater, that used to be where every Sunday or holy days, the Catholic priest would celebrate Mass there
Sure.
for the clients.
Well, matter of fact, the fire that destroyed that theater, there I was working there at Dever in the canteen at the time, and the fire started in the room where the priest kept his garments or got dressed
Right.
in there, and the curtain was a very old curtain, so it just it swept up through that building. But some of the clients used to sneak in there. There was a way to get Jimmy the door open, and and they smoking, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
So,
And you talk about the cottages. When that state school first opened up, it was called the nurseries.
right.
They had clients there as babies in cribs at that time.
Right.
And like you said, some of these clients, they grew up to be adults.
Because originally it was intended for juveniles. The entire camp was originally intended for that. But
Right.
as we saw, there was a particular gentleman, I'll just say his first name was George. He told me, I asked him, and he was very, very bright, and he had been there pretty much his whole life.
Yeah.
And I had asked him, I says, how do you happen to come there? And he says that his father was a bricklayer, and every time during the busy season, he would, and his wife, I guess his mother, George's mother, had passed on, so his father was taking care of him, would drop him off there and leave him there during the busy season, and then come back in the fall to get him. And one particular year, he just never came back.
Right, yeah.
So he was, but a very, very bright. They used to walk downtown to many of the restaurants and stores in downtown Taunton, and he was telling me, now, but this is in the 80s, he was telling me what it was like to go down in the early 50s downtown to the restaurants and who had the best fish and chips and what the prices were, and he was, amazing memory, and there they are, as patients at Paul Dever.
Right. Each client there was unique, you know. They had talents or something, you know.
Yeah.
They had one girl there that could tell her one time your birthday, and she would tell you the day that your birthday is going to be on that particular year.
Amazing. She'd tell you your license plate, your phone number, and everything else.
Right. I used to tell her, why don't you pick me out a daily double in the dog track?
Oh, boy. Just what you
Okay,
need.
Charlie.
Thank you.
Another thing about getting back to Miles Standish,
Yep.
when I was taking basic training down at Fort Benning, Georgia, my section leader, Sergeant, he was a leftover from World War II. He was a career man, and he mentioned that he did come through Miles Standish, and that's where he left to go to Boston and catch the ship to go over to Germany.
And a lot of the units were decommissioned at Camp Miles Standish following the war.
Yeah.
And you'll find a lot of records of that. A lot of the famous units as well.
Right.
Great.
Well, this particular sergeant, I mean, he stayed in the reserves after World War II. Then he got caught up in the Korea War, and so he went all the way to he could retire as a military pension.
Great. Great.
So,
Well, thank you. Thanks for
okay,
sharing
buddy,
that.
that was a good show tonight.
Great. Thank you. Take care.
Yep.
Just trip me out. They're fucking crazy.
This building had been used for police firearms training, and that's actually where a lot of this graffiti with the arrows and numbers came from.
Grab me boys.
We now return to the L-shaped dormitories. Inside of these dorms, behind the cubicles, is where the patients would have slept.
This is where it smells like weed. What? This is the building that smells like weed. Yeah, I know.
This building was the gym and school classrooms. In 2009, it was painted to be used as part of a movie set for the movie Surrogates that was filmed on the campus. This building, which I always thought looked like a McDonald's from the outside, is called the Cook Building, named after the institution's second superintendent, Dr. Richard Cook. This building had offices and a theater inside of it. The Devers School closed in 2002. For many years, it was known as a very fun place for urban explorers to go and explore. In 2013, demolition began. I explored this in 2015, mid-demolition, and am really fortunate to have been able to see what I did, because as of today, there's nothing left. And the Devers School really was a fun place to explore. On my walk off the campus, I make a stop at the original administration building from Camp Miles Standish. I see it briefly, and then I'm gone.